What do we really mean when we talk about tables in SQL? Tables are database objects that contains all the data in the database. Each column within the table represents a field, and each row represents a unique record. We have our employee table, and we have the first name column, the last name column, the department column, and the employee ID column. The rows are the records within the table. In the employee table, we have the information of our employees. Tom Bradley in the finance department, employee ID 1002. Pooja Shah, human resources, employee ID 1221. We have Matthew Fisher in technology, employee ID 2219. And Mary Thompson, human resources, employee ID 2254. So all of these are rows, but those are the records within the table. So in a table within SQL, we have the columns and we have the rows. The columns are sometimes referred to as the fields, and the rows are referred to as the records. How do we create tables in SQL? The syntax for creating a table is create table, followed by the name of the table. We open our parentheses. We have the column name, followed by the data type of that column, followed by comma. And then if we have another second column, we write the name of the column, followed by the data type. Then we close our parentheses, and then we end it with a semicolon. In this example, we're trying to create a table with the table name cat. So we type create table, the table name cat, open our parentheses. Now, what are the information that we need to be imputed for the cat in our table? Let's say we need just two information. One is the name of the cat, or the cats in our table, and we'd like to have the ages of our cats as well. So to define the first column, we write name, which is the column name. And what's the data type? Because this is a character data, we'll use our varchar. And what's the maximum number of characters we want in that column? So what's the maximum character length for the names? Here we're saying we want 20, which means we don't want any name that's more than 20 characters. So we'll put that there, a comma, and then the next column will be the age. Now, because this will be an integer, we'll use the int data type. And since we're not adding any other column, we don't have to put a comma. The next would be to close our parentheses and then end with a semicolon to let SQL Server know that we're done. I'm going to switch over to SQL Server where we would start writing our queries. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a new database. Once we create a new database, we'll use the database and then we'll create a table. Now, if you remember, the query to create a database is create database. And what's the name of the database? Would say pets. And select that, execute. Now we're going to use the database we created. Use pets. And now we see that our database name has changed to pets. And now let's create our table. We just create table. The name of the table will be cat. And we want to have, for our columns, we'd like to have the name of our cat. So it's a name. And this would be a varchar. And what's the maximum number of characters we want our cat to have? Cat name would say 20. And then we'll create a second column, and that will be the age of our cat. And that will be an integer. And for now, we're just going to create a cat table with just 2 columns. And we can go ahead and close the parenthesis and end with a semicolon. Now we can execute. So we have commands completed successfully. Let's refresh our cache. And then we click on the drop down. We have our pets database. Now within the pets database, if we click on the drop down, we have these objects listed below. And what we want to do is click on tables. And we see we have our cats table. Let's create another table. Tap down there, create table, and we'll call this cat2. Let's say we need the name of our cat. And because this is character, it will be varchar. 120 as well. So we have age. That'll be int. Let's add a third column, and that would be, let's say, color. And that would be a varchar as well. 20. And now we'll close that. Execute. And by the way, you can move this down to create more space. Now if we refresh and go to our tables, now we have the second cats table that we created. Right, so let's create one more table. Now earlier on we talked about SQL naming convention, and I talked about situations in which you do have a column with multiple words name. And for instance, let's say you have first name, and it is suggested that you don't want to have spaces between your words. So we'll try and see what that looks like here. So let's create another table called create table, and we'll call this table student. And we'd like to have the first name of our student, so we have first, and we can use the snake case by having underscore, and then you have name, so that will be the first name. This way we avoid having spaces between the two words. And this would be varchar because it's a character, and we'll say 50. That will be the maximum length of the name we can have. And let's say we have last name, and I'll just okay, well, let's just last name, that's fine. And would have that as varchar as well. And let's have our student's age, and that will be an integer. And we'll close the parenthesis. You can go ahead and create. Then if we refresh our database, we'll go to the tables, and now we have our students table. And let's create a second table, second students table. So let's create a second table, and that will be another students table, and we'll call this students2. So we have create table, students2. Now we'll use the camel case, which is the first letter is capitalized followed by smaller case, and then the first letter of the second word is capitalized as well. Then we have the last name, 50, comma. Then we have age, that'll be an integer. Close. All right, then we go ahead and execute. Command completed successfully. Now we can just click on the tables, refresh, and now we have our students to table. Now that we've created our tables, the next step would be to insert data into our tables. So how do we do that? The syntax to insert data into our table or into tables is you type insert into the name of the table that you want to insert data into, and then we have to specify what columns we want to insert data into. So that would be column number 1, column number 2 if you have multiple columns, so would have to state the name of those columns. And then followed by the values, which is what data we want to insert into those columns. To insert data into our cats table, we'll type insert into the name of the table cats. What column do we want to insert data into? We want to insert data into the name column as well as the age column. Now, what are the values that we want to insert into those columns? For the name, we want to insert Bella. Because this is a character or a string data type, it has to be in single quotes, followed by comma, and then the age, which is an int data type. It doesn't need a quotation mark, so we just put in the data, which is 19. Let's go to SQL Server and try this out. Okay, so I'm going to open a new query box for the inserts, and we're going to insert into the cat table. So we go insert into what table? Cat. And what are the columns we'd like to insert data into? We'd like to insert into name as well as age. And what are the values we'd like to insert? So we'd say values, and into name we want to insert, let's say, Bella. And Bella's age is, let's say, 4. We close that, semicolon. Then we go ahead and execute. Here we'd see one row affected. Let's insert another data into our table. It's a cat. Again, we want the name and we want the age. Okay. Then we have values. And this time we want to say Cindy, perhaps. And Cindy's age is 5. Okay. Execute. Let's insert one more record into our cat's data. So we go insert into cat. We want the name, we want the age. The values would be, so cat's name is Smokey. And Smokey's age is, that's it, 4. We can run that query. Okay. So far we've been inserting single records into our cat table. Now we can also insert multiple records at the same time into the table. So we'll do that now, and we'll insert that into the cat2 table. So we say insert into, and this will be cat2. And I believe our cat2 table has 3 columns. We have the name, the age, as well as the color. So let's say the name, We'll like the age, and we'll like the color. And for the values, we'll have, let's say, Sassy maybe? Sassy, and Sassy is 5 years, and color would be brown. Okay. Now to insert another record, we just need to separate the first record and the next record with a comma. And then we can have the second record would be, let's say, Oscar. And Oscar is 4. And Oscar is a black. It's a black cat. Then we close that. And we can, yeah, why not? Let's insert one more record. Just separate it with a comma. And let's say that will be Coco. Coco is 3 years. And Coco is a pink card. So now when we run this command, it says 3 rows affected because we just inserted 3 records into the cat2 table. Before we move further, I would like to bring to your attention something we talked about in a previous video on SQL Naming Convention. You must have noticed that sometimes I type some words in uppercase and others in lowercase. Also, some words appear in the color blue and black and red. It is recommended that SQL keywords be typed in uppercase to distinguish them from other words. SQL keywords are reserved words used for defining, manipulating, and accessing our database. For example, insert into, values, create, when we created tables, create table, all of those, varchar, int, all of those are SQL keywords, and by having those written in capital letter or uppercase helps us to distinguish them from other words. So I could have written the same codes in lowercase. So let's do that again. I'm just gonna do insert into, and we'll insert into the same cat2. We have name, age, we have color, and then we have the values would be, so the name is max age is 6, and max color would be black. And you'd see that when you run this works perfectly well. So the whole idea of writing the SQL keywords in capital is one, it separates or distinguishes between the reserved words within SQL and the words that we created ourselves or we imputed ourselves. It also makes the code look clean. The blue color also indicates the codes that are the keywords within SQL. You would notice there that name is also in blue, and that's because name is also a reserved word within SQL. So you want to be careful or the way you use name. But essentially, any color in blue is an SQL keyword, and you have red to indicate the string characters, and the integer characters are in black. Another thing you would have noticed is that I tend to break my codes. So for here we have insert into cat, and then we have the columns, the cat name and the age, and then I pressed enter to go to the next line to include the values. I could have written the same code as insert into cat, and let's say name, age, and then values would be, let's say, this way it gets difficult to make up names. Let's say Matthew or Matty. and Matty's age would be 6. So I could have done exactly this without breaking the code, but the reason why you want to break the code is to make your code look clean. For instance, in this example that we inserted multiple values, imagine if we have to insert like 10, 20, 30 records and just have that all in one line. It won't make your code look clean and professional. So it is always advisable that once you're entering a new argument, you want to start that on the next line. And we'll be doing this a lot in this course, so not to worry. So go ahead and run this query, execute. Okay. Now, another thing I would like to show you is this so far, and I'll just copy this, and just Control C, enter, and then just Control V, just how you'd normally copy, and I'll enter this. Now, so far, when we insert data into our cats table, we know we have 2 columns and we go in the order name and age, but we actually don't have to do that. We can do this, insert into cat, and we can go age and name. So it doesn't really matter which one comes first. Now, having said that, it does matter when you enter the value. So because we now have age on the first column, we cannot insert name in that column because it's meant for the age and it's an integer as well. So we can't say, for instance, on the age we insert, let's say, Brenda. And then on the name we insert 7. If we do this and run this code, it's going to give us an error which says conversion failed when converting the varchar value Brenda to data type int. And what that's just really saying is that this value cannot fit into this column. So you have to make sure that even though when you initiate the order you want the column to be printed or the information to be entered, that doesn't really matter, but the values has to align with the data. So in this situation, I would just say age is 7 and the name will be Brenda. And when we run this, this would work.